I never imagined my grandma could teach me about life, loss, and unbreakable strength. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sky was a bruised gray, heavy with unshed tears just like my heart. I stood in the kitchen, the air thick with flour and memories. Grandma was there, her hands trembling as she kneaded the dough. But her smile was warm and inviting. Little did I know that smile was hiding secrets. You see, Grandma wasn't just any grandma. She held a treasure trove of ancient stories, each one more baffling than the last. There were whispers of her youth, tales of wild adventures in distant lands, and hints of heartbreak stitched into her aprons. My childhood was filled with her mysterious artifacts: an old compass that never pointed north, a faded photograph of a man with laughter in his eyes, and a delicate locket that she never opened. I had no idea that each object was a thread in a web of unbreakable strength, woven from the fabric of her life's struggles. We shared our days in the warmth of the home she built, every meal a chance to unravel more of her past. But as she pulled me closer that fateful afternoon, the shadows in her eyes grew deeper. "You must listen," she whispered, her voice quivering like a candle flame in the dark. With every beat of my heart, I felt the weight of her words as they filled the room, the silence pressing down like the pressure of an unsaid goodbye. Just as I leaned in, eager to catch the next part of her story, the phone shattered the moment. The ring was sharp, slicing through our connection. With trembling hands she reached for it, and the look on her face turned my blood cold. This wasn't just any call. Time seemed to freeze as she answered. Her voice dropped to a hush, a quiet that screamed louder than thunder, filling the air with dread. I could see her cheeks pale, her grip on the countertop tightening. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. Something was wrong. I wanted to scream, to pull her back from the edge, but I stood frozen, my heart pounding in rhythm with the clock on the wall. The seconds dragged, heavy like lead, and the smell of fresh-baked bread turned bitter in my mouth. When she finally hung up, everything changed. The air crackled with unspoken fears. She turned to me, eyes glistening with tears that carried stories of loss I was too young to understand. "Life has a way of teaching us," she began, her voice barely a whisper. But before I could ask what she meant, her words caught in her throat. I could feel the tension suffocating the room. What was it that haunted her? What life lesson was she about to reveal? I wanted to shake her, to force her to tell me everything. The way her gaze fell to the floor told me it was something big, something that would change everything. I could feel it. Something was about to shatter, and I was left hovering at the precipice. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The days that followed the phone call were a blur of confusion and silence. Grandma's laughter, once a melody that filled our home, had become a distant echo, drowned out by the weight of unsaid words. I felt the change in the fabric of our lives. It was tangible, yet shrouded in an air of inevitability. The kitchen, which had always been our sanctuary, now felt like a battleground with sorrow lurking in every crevice. Each time the phone rang, my heart would leap, a frantic bird desperate for an escape. I would watch as Grandma's face transform, a fleeting glimpse of hope extinguished swiftly by despair. She spent hours staring out of the window, her eyes fixed on the horizon as if she were searching for something just out of reach. I wanted to ask her what was troubling her, to pry the truth from the shadows hiding beneath her gentle demeanor. But fear gripped me, and I feared that disturbing her silence would unleash a storm. One afternoon, as we sat across from each other at the kitchen table, a plate of untouched cookies separating us, I finally mustered the courage to speak. "Grandma," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "What did the call say?" Her gaze faltered, and for a moment, it felt like the walls were closing in. "It was just old friends," she replied, her voice a fragile facade. I knew it was a lie, but the glimmer of relief in her eyes made me reconsider pushing her further. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, feeling a sense of defeat wash over me. That night, sleep eluded me. The house was steeped in an oppressive stillness, and shadows danced mockingly on the walls. Restless, I crept downstairs to find Grandma, hoping for a glimpse of the resilient woman I once knew. But there she sat at the kitchen table, clutching the locket. Its golden surface shimmered under the dim light, yet I could see her trembling hands betray a storm brewing inside her. "Can I come sit with you?" I ventured cautiously, my heart racing. She nodded, and I settled across from her. The locket hung between us like a fragile barrier, a reminder of the stories locked within it. "What's in there, Grandma?" I asked, my curiosity getting the better of me. Her eyes met mine, filled with a blend of sorrow and longing. This is a piece of my past," she breathed softly before pausing to gather her thoughts. "It contains a photograph of someone I loved deeply, a person I lost many years ago." I felt my heart ache. Who could possibly take such a formidable presence in her life? I wanted to know more, to uncover the unknown layer of her struggles, yet I was terrified of the emotions it might unveil. "Can you tell me about him?" I asked, my curiosity outweighing my fear. Grandma hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the window where the moonlight spilled into the room. "He was full of life. A dreamer like you. But loss changed everything, and I lost parts of myself along the way," she finally replied, her voice laced with both nostalgia and sadness. Just then the front door creaked open, breaking the tension between us. I whipped my head toward the sound. It was Night, our rusty tabby cat, returning home from a nighttime adventure. She sashayed into the kitchen, her fur illuminated by the soft moonlight. Instantly, her presence disrupted the heaviness, and I felt my lips curve into a smile. "See? Not all is dim," Grandma said, her melancholy momentarily lifted. She reached out to stroke Night, her fingers dancing gently along the cat's back. "Sometimes it's the smallest of things that can remind us there's still warmth left in the world." But just as warmth began to fill the void, the phone rang again. This time Grandma's face paled. I gripped the table, heart racing. She didn't reach for the phone this time. A different kind of fear gripped her, a realization dawning in her eyes. I felt a mixture of dread and concern as the ringing continued, each chime echoing my internal turmoil. "Maybe you should answer it," I urged her, my voice trembling. "No," she said, shaking her head, a veil of vulnerability draped over her features. "Some truths are not ready to be spoken." With those words she stood abruptly, abandoning the table like it had turned to quicksand beneath her. Just then, as I followed her with my eyes, my gaze fell on the locket. I reached for it and hesitated just before opening it. But I felt compelled, the weight of its mystery pressing on my soul. As I lifted the latch, a small folded piece of paper slipped out, landing quietly on the table. Before I could reach for it, Grandma turned. Terror etched across her face. She cried, "Don't!" The locket dangled from my fingers, the secrets within shimmering beneath the kitchen light, while my heart raced with a million questions. What could be so dangerous that she would beg me to stop? In that moment, I realized that I might be on the brink of uncovering something that would shake the very foundation of our lives. And as Grandma's eyes haunted me with both fear and love, I understood. Some truths heal, while others may shatter us completely. The silence that followed Grandma's desperate plea was suffocating, wrapping around me like a thick fog, shielding us both from the emotions that bubbled just beneath the surface. I held the locket in my trembling fingers, the small, delicate promise of forgotten stories and hidden truths weighing heavily between us. Grandma's expression shifted, confusion and grief swirling in her gaze like a storm that threatened to break. "Please," she suddenly implored, her voice cracking like ice. Just put it down." That I hesitated, craving to know the secrets her past held, yet feeling the weight of her attachment to the unknown. It was a moment suspended in time, a swirling dance of fear and curiosity. But an instinct told me to comply. No harder could I press into the raw edges of her pain without irrevocably severing the threads of our bond. Reluctantly, I placed the locket back on the table, where it lay between us, a chasm of unspoken sorrow and fear. Grandma took a deep breath, the tension in her shoulders softening slightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice fragile yet resolute. "It's just that old wounds never truly heal." As the phone continued to ring, the sound morphed into a maddening reminder of the shadows that hung over our lives, faint but insistent, refusing to diminish. "I can't keep running from it." "Not anymore," she said, her words tasting like ash on my tongue, the implications of them sending a shiver down my spine. That I stepped closer, feeling the tears threatening at the corners of my eyes. "What does that mean, Grandma?" I challenged gently, hoping to coax the truth from her. More than anything, I wanted to share this burden, to stand firm by her side. Before she could reply, a shattering crash reverberated through the air, breaking the fragile truce we'd established. I jumped, my heart leaping into my throat, only to realize that it came from the living room. We exchanged a swift, startled glance, the weight of our own uncertainty suspended in the air as we rushed to investigate. There, scattered across the floor, lay the remnants of a cherished porcelain vase, the first piece of decoration Grandpa had gifted her during their early years together. A wave of unfiltered grief washed over me as I realized that not only had the vase been ruined, but also a piece of the past that Grandma had fought to keep untouched. "Grandma," I whispered, realizing the blow that this loss must have dealt her. She stood frozen at the threshold, shock evident in her eyes. Tears welled as she stepped forward, palms trembling as she picked up the shards, each fragment a memory of days long gone. "Sweetheart, it's just a vase," she said weakly, but the quiver in her voice betrayed her. "It's not important." But I knew better. The vase symbolized not just an object of beauty in our home, but a reminder of love and laughter, of dreams shared beneath the sunlit sky. The weight of her words felt insurmountable. "Maybe you're right, but it was more than just a vase," I whispered, echoing the unbearable truth that hung between us like a bitter aftertaste. "It's all I have left of him," she said suddenly, her voice a jagged whisper. She sank to her knees, running her fingers lightly over the shards, the pain etched in her features palpable. In that moment, the locket's mystery felt insignificant next to the rawness of her grief, the air thick with decades of collection swirling between us. I knelt beside her, not knowing what to say, but desperate to comfort her. "We can fix it, Grandma. Somehow we can create something new from it." "Can we ever truly fix what's been broken?" she murmured, the question hauntingly rhetorical. Just then, as I helped her gather the pieces, a glimmer caught my eye. Amongst the debris lay the small folded piece of paper from the locket. Surprised, I picked it up, my heart racing anew as I felt the weight of gravity in its folds. "Look," I exclaimed, holding it out between us. She recoiled, a fear-filled gaze locking onto the paper, and I thought I saw a flicker of something, a longing perhaps, or regret. "No," she struggled to say, but it was too late. Curiosity propelled me forward, and I carefully unfolded the paper. What I revealed twisted my stomach. A faded photograph, neatly tucked within, showing a younger version of Grandma laughing joyfully with a man whose eyes gleamed with life, the same man whose visage must have crowned the locket. "Well, who is he?" I asked incredulously, my voice echoing off the walls of our anguish. In one swift motion, the revelation struck like lightning, illuminating long-kept truths shrouded in darkness. The ring of the phone diminished into a mere ghost as the reality hung there, poised precariously. "I never shared his name," she whispered, filling the space with a haunting regret. "Because the moment I did, it meant I'd have to let him go again." And just like that, the world around us faded into insignificance, as we grappled with the weight of this momentum moment that promised to either heal us or shatter us completely. Now it seemed we were tangled in the web of loss and love once more, each strand delicate, yet pulsing with hidden strength, waiting for either destruction or redemption. The warmth of the fading afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the floor littered with shards of the vase, a silent testament to Grandma's pain and the unpredictable nature of grief. My heart raced as I processed the photograph clutched in my hands, a tangible piece of a past that had never truly been shared. "Who was he?" My voice cracked, filled with the yearning to understand not only Grandma's history, but also the depth of sorrow intertwined with her silences. She paused, the weight of memory seeming to stifle her breath. "His name was Daniel. We had dreams adventures until life decided we should make sacrifices." The last words lingered in the room, a whispered echo that hung like smoke. I felt a strange mix of empathy and confusion swirling within me. What sort of sacrifices? Was he taken from you? My heart ached, threading my voice with caution as I sought truth in her unspoken words. "Yes," she said, her shoulders shuddering as if battling an invisible weight. "But it's more complicated than that. We lost each other in ways that made saying goodbye feel more like a relief than a tragedy." The admission cracked like ice beneath her feet, and I could sense the tremors of regret coursing through her. "Grandma, I don't understand. You loved him." I reached for her hand, intertwining my fingers with hers. desperate to bridge the chasm of years that separated us. I did, she choked out, tears spilling down her cheeks. But sometimes love isn't enough to keep two people together when the world outside becomes unbearable. I lived in the shadows of his absence. I had to choose between clinging to the memories or finding space for new ones. So I buried him inside me and told myself it was easier that way. Everything about her past felt like a vast ocean, deep, tumultuous, filled with the wreckage of unfulfilled promises and sunk hopes. I glanced at the photograph once more, and the young faces in it seemed to sparkle with a vibrant energy that somehow connected to the woman before me. But the happiness was clouded by a melancholy that had manifested into a shroud enveloping our home. Why now? I pressed gently, yearning to understand why this moment was surfacing beneath the weight of the vase's destruction. Why did you never tell me about him before? Because sometimes the truth is a heavy burden, she whispered, her voice fragile as porcelain. I feared it would strain our bond. As Grandma spoke, a small flicker of kindness ignited within me. But truth can also unite us, can't it? Just like the memories of those we love. I squeezed her hand a little tighter, willing her to see that vulnerability could weave an unbreakable thread strong enough to hold us together. And what if those memories are too painful to bear? She murmured, eyes glistening with unshed tears. It was as if she was peeling back layers with every question, posed a gradual exposure of wounds that had most certainly festered. Before I had the chance to respond, the insistent ringing of the phone erupted again, pulling us momentarily from the depths of our conversation. Grandma's eyes darted toward the source, and I could see her emotional battle unfold before me. Would she pick up the phone, answer the call of a past that loomed so large, or let it ring unanswered, just as she had with so many sorrows? It could be important, I said, nodding toward the phone even as panic settled in my stomach. It could be someone who wants to help? The words felt like shards of their own glimmering but potentially harmful. She inhaled sharply, but just as hesitation threatened to seize her, I felt a sudden impulse stirring deep within. Please, Grandma. If there's anything I've learned through all of thesis, that it's never too late to reach out. You have me now. Her fingers trembled around my grip, and after a brief moment that stretched infinitely, she released a shuddering breath. Maybe you're right. Steeling herself, she turned toward the ringing phone, the dial tone echoing a cacophony of choices and possibilities. With every step to answer, I watched fear and resolve waltz together like old friends, battling for control. Hello? Her voice steadied, and I held my breath, praying for a lifeline, for Hera connection that might illuminate the mournful shadows that clouded her heart. Marie? The voice on the other end was unfamiliar yet vibrated with urgency. I could see Grandma's features tightening as she listened. Who is this? She managed to ask, and it was almost as if time stood still. As she continued the conversation, I felt a chill creeping along my spine when I noticed a shadow lurking at the doorway just outside our home, someone watching. An unseen presence shrouded in darkness, their intent hidden behind a veil of anonymity. In that moment, the collision of truth and fear spiraled within me, and as Grandma's face paled further with each word spoken into the receiver, a sudden knot formed in my throat. This could change everything. With the eerie weight of discovery and dread coiling around us, I realized we were on the precipice of something monumental, something that would ultimately force us to confront not just the pains of the past, but the uncertain terrain of our future. And in that moment, I knew we were no longer just fighting her ghosts. We were inviting new ones to join us. The atmosphere in the living room felt electric, a tense surge of anticipation hanging like a thundercloud just before a storm. As Grandma's voice vibrated with a mixture of confusion and fear, I shifted uneasily, attempting to decipher the shadow lurking at the doorway. It felt like an unwelcome specter, a translucent figure from the past slinking into our present, uninvited and poised to unsettle everything. Marie, we need to talk. The voice on the other end was low and serious, drawing my attention back to Grandma, who had gone pale, her hand shaking slightly as she clutched the phone. I found something about Daniel, and my heart raced, the mention of his name sending ripples through both of us, connecting us to that long-buried sadness. Was it a photograph? A letter? My mind swirled with the possibilities, and every answer felt like a potential trigger for complications we weren't yet ready to face. What do you mean? Grandma finally managed to ask, her voice trembling softly, echoing the frailness echoed in her eyes. I watched the flickers of fear dart across her face like sunlight on water, shadows fleeting yet powerful, and deep down I wished I could shield her from whatever revelation awaited. With each sentence spoken into the receiver, I could see Grandma struggling, wrestling with a tide of regret and nostalgia that rippled through her as if attempting to drag her beneath the waves. The walls of our home, once steeped only in her silence, now reverberated with the weight of lost stories. I wanted to reach out and hold her, to ground her in this moment, but I felt tethered by the energy of anticipation swelling fearfully around us. "Daniel's sister, she's looking for you," the voice continued, each word striking like a hammer against the anvil of our shared silence. "She wants to share something important, Marie. Something about what happened and why he never came back." Those words, a knot twisted in my stomach, tightening into a painful coil. Was this why she had clung to the past? Why she had buried Daniel deep within her heart? What threads of trauma were woven into his disappearance that could unravel the very fabric of her being? Grandma's expression grew more fragile, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I don't know if I can," she whispered, voice barely above a hush, as if afraid the walls themselves might overhear her vulnerability. With each inhale, it felt like she was being asked to scale a mountain of unreconciled feelings, expectations, and fears rustling like dry leaves in the autumn wind. "What if it's what you need, Grandma?" The words spilled from me, unplanned but necessary. "What if learning the truth sets you free? Brings you peace?" As she remained frozen in place, her gaze darting from the window to the floor, images flashed through my mind of her laughing in the sun, cooking in the kitchen, burying herself in books that never told her story. I had seen her refuse the past for so long that I didn't know if breaking that wall would unleash a flood or simply wash away the echoes of pain. "It's been so long. I don't even know where to begin." She struggled, the phone trembling in her grasp. "Start by being honest with yourself. It's okay to feel scared." I moved closer, feeling the warmth of her presence fighting against the chill of uncertainty in the air. "But you're not alone. I'm here." She turned to me then, vulnerability etched into the lines of her face. "What if her truth is more than I can bear?" And just as I was about to respond, the chilling realization dawned upon me that the dark figure still lingered at our doorway, intangible yet palpable, watching, waiting. The urgency of the conversation staved off my instincts to confront the unknown encroaching upon us. Yet I felt the weight of the shadows settling into our lives, linking past pains with present uncertainties. "I need to think," Grandma murmured slowly, pressing the phone tighter against her ear as if the connection was grounding her. Can you give us a moment?" I nodded, though a storm brewed in my heart. As she paced toward the window, I stepped carefully toward the door, heart pounding, the reflection of the sinister shadow dancing against the wall. I hesitated at the threshold, almost turning back, but curiosity propelled me forward, a desire to know what was hidden there, awaiting discovery. But as I turned, the shadow slipped away, disappearing into the thickening dusk. My breath caught in my throat. Had it been a mirage? Or had I truly been an observer, swept into a place where the past conjoined with the present, leaving me breathless in its wake? The ringing of the phone, a clarion call piercing the heavy silence, jolted me from my thoughts. I glanced back to find Grandma looking out, hope flickering in her expression as she weighed whether to dive deeper into the abyss of her own history. Finally, she sighed, glancing down at the photograph of Daniel still gripped in her other hand, a relic crumpled under desperate fingers. "I'll call you back," she murmured, her voice firm yet uncertain as she ended the call. In that moment, I felt the gravity of the choices laid out before us, the threshold we stood upon shifting before my eyes. And with every passing second, we were poised on the edge of a revelation that might redefine our relationship forever, seeking closure, understanding, or possibly something far more disturbing. And just like that, it became glaringly evident that the specters of the past wouldn't easily release their hold. We had merely unsealed the box, our lives teetering on the brink of inexplicable truths yet to be unearthed. As the afternoon sun dipped low in the horizon, its rays painted the living room in golden hues that offered a fleeting warmth. But shadows still clung to the corners, lingering like unsaid thoughts. As I stood near the door, gazing into the encroaching dusk, Grandma's face, caught in a delicate ballet of hope and fear, lingered vividly in my mind as she turned her back to me, struggling to reconcile her fragile courage with the weight of a past she had never truly shared. "Marie," she called softly, her voice barely slicing through the silence. I don't want to go back to that place." My heart ached at the tremor in her voice, heavy with memories that I could only imagine from the edges. "You don't have to do it alone." We're in this together. Whatever it is, I replied, my tone bolstered by a growing determination, but instead of answering, she stood at the window, looking out as if searching for answers among the trees, their branches swaying like wraiths caught in a dance only my grandmother could understand. I felt helpless, a weightless anchor in an ocean of uncertainty. The moment stretched, every tick of the clock loud yet silent, reverberating with the vastness of what lay ahead. That I thought I buried it all, she finally murmured, as if speaking to herself rather than me. That pain. I was wrong to think time could erase it. Time can shift things, Grandma. Can bring clarity, I encouraged gently. But it can also show us what we need to face. Her shoulders slumped as she inhaled sharply, bringing me to the edge of a new understanding. Her burden was not just of loss, but the fear of resurrecting those memories that threatened to consume her whole. Grandma had built walls of silence around her grief, layers upon layers of protective fabric, yet somehow I stood before her, daring to peel them back. A sudden flutter at the doorway broke the moment between us. I turned to find a small child wandering in, her dark eyes wide and innocent, clutching a faded teddy bear against her chest. I heard voices, the girl said with a touch of awe, unaware of the tempest swirling in our home. Oh, you live nearby, sweetheart? I asked, kneeling to meet her gaze, the tension something I pushed to the background. If only for a moment. She nodded, her head bobbing like a pendulum. My puppy ran away. I thought I might find him here. The sincerity in her voice was refreshing, and for a heartbeat, the gravity of our situation lightened. Would you like to come in while you look? I asked, glancing back at Grandma, who was now watching the child with a tenderness that momentarily softened her features. There was something serene about her gaze, as if the innocence this girl carried briefly illuminated the darkness we were navigating. The little girl burst into the room, the sunshine following her as she skipped past me, ignoring the heavy energy that had enveloped the space just moments before. Can I help you find your puppy? I suggested, shifting my focus and joining her. With distraction blossoming around us, I caught Grandma look down, suppressing a smile as warm feelings sparked between them. My name's Lily, the child announced, radiating joy. Marie, I replied, motioning to my grandmother. And this is it an actual puppy? She interrupted me, her blue eyes sparkling with interest and curiosity. Grandma's breath caught as her heart hung momentarily on the edge of nostalgia. It is, she replied softly, her voice taking on an almost forbidden lightness. Can I help you find it? The child's enthusiasm was infectious, pulling my grandmother away from her darker thoughts and into the simplicity of a child's world. Their connection sparked something in the air, an unexpected warmth that momentarily cast aside the shadows of grief. As they pored over memories of dogs and their bedtime stories, I managed to steal glances outside, where the dusky shadows concealed the figure that had first intrigued me. Was it the same shadow I had seen before? Fear curled at the edges of my thoughts, but a cold breeze swirled around us, pulling my attention back toward the warmth building. Inside. Amidst our light-hearted banter, the phone rang again, slicing through the moment like a knife, reminding us of the unanswered questions lingering in the corners of our minds. Grandma looked at the display, her face blanching. It was an unknown number, yet it felt all too familiar. A weight of inevitability surged between us, my instincts screaming that it was Daniel's sister. Take a breath. You can do this, I whispered, leaning close to her. Without answering, she reached for the phone, her hand shaking as she accepted the call. Hello? Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard. Marie? It's been a long time. The voice on the other end came, rich with a haunting familiarity. I glanced at Grandma's eyes, wide and shimmering, as if the girl's spirit had just lit a match against an approaching storm. Why now? Was all she managed to whisper, her grip tightening as if that phone could tether her to who she had been. In that breathless pause, the little girl turned towards us, witnessing something beyond her innocent reach without fully understanding the gravity of the encounter unfolding before her. And that was the moment it hit me, as her gaze darted back and forth between us. We were standing at the edge, our emotions raw and vulnerable, as the whisper of the past bore down on us fiercely, and the shadows began to close in. Every heartbeat pulsed with the merging of two worlds, teetering toward a collision of truths and consequences yet to be unraveled. And in her eyes I could see a bubbling fear of what was yet to come, an unreciprocated hope that we might find peace in the story waiting to emerge. Just before Grandma could respond to the voice on the line, the connection abruptly cut off. We stared at each other, disbelief washing over us, the little girl caught in the midst of our silent tempest. There it lay, the truth that could shatter the fragile moment we had begun to build. "Where did you go, Grandma?" I whispered as the shadows stretched across the room, welcoming the darkness into our lives like an unwelcome guest. Then the door behind her creaked open, and I couldn't help but feel an unseen presence linger just beyond the threshold, rooted in our twisted history, craving to step into the light, aching to join the conversation that had just begun. The knock echoed again, louder this time, reverberating through the walls like a drum calling us to the inevitable. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his presence now an unsettling reminder that deeper truths were about to come to light. Grandma's fingers trembled against the wall as if seeking the strength to hold herself up. "Who is it?" I called out, my voice trembling just slightly, the unease attaching itself to every word as it floated into the air. "Just open the door," a gruff voice called back, sharp and uncompromising. It struck me as familiar yet foreign, an echo from a past I had barely touched. Grandma turned pale, her eyes wide in stark terror. "Please don't," she began, but Daniel's hand shot up, silent yet definitive. His posture had shifted, a protective shield suddenly surrounding her, fiercely slashing through the air filled with unsaid words. "Stay here," he murmured to her, but it was unclear whether he meant it for safety or as a plea to confront her demons. The very atmosphere quivered with the anticipation of what would come next, the raw edges of our questions sharpening even more. With a trembling breath, I steeled myself and walked towards the door, instinct driving me forward as dread curled tightly in my stomach. My hand hovered over the knob, hesitating. I turned back to Grandma, who was pale and fragile, the weight of her past stitched tightly around her heart. "Are you sure you want this?" I asked her, every syllable dripping with concern. She nodded slowly, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes, but the fierce determination in her gaze burgeoned with an unyielding essence, like a flower pushing through solid rock. "Together, right?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper, anchored by the hope that whatever awaited us on the other side might just reshape our lives together. She affirmed, strength blossoming beneath the tremor of her words. That I finally turned the knob, swinging the door wide open. The night air rushed in, cold and biting, contrasting sharply against the warmth of our home. The figure on the porch was outlined against the moonlight, a tall man in a long trench coat, his features obscured in shadow but unmistakable in presence. "Eli," Marie gasped, recognition lacing through her voice, a mixture of relief, anger, and fear. The man stepped closer, the shape of his face coming into view, and I felt my heart drop. His resemblance to Grandma was undeniable, a blend of pain and familiarity. "I came as soon as I heard," he stated, his tone low but firm, resonating with an unsettling kinship that tangled our fates even further. Before Grandma could respond, he pulled a bundle from inside his Kawada-yellowed envelope, sealed precariously. "You have to read this. It's time to face it." And with that, the world began to swirl again, past and present colliding, shattering the fragile calm we had barely sensed. I watched as her hands trembled, reaching for the letters, but she faltered, leaving the envelope hanging in the air, heavy with anticipation. "Eli, I can't." "Not now," she stammered, horror dawning across her features. The name meant something. I knew it was more than just the face that matched hers. It was a key to shadows she had tried so hard to bury, an unveiling of ghosts long gone. He stepped closer, gentle yet insistent. "Marie, you can't keep running." The resolve in his voice carried echoes of long-lost hope, urging her to confront the thing she feared most, the ugly truths that had haunted her for decades. That moment, Lily's giggles floated back into the room, translucent and shimmering, an odd juxtaposition to our gathering storm. It was a reminder of the innocence we were striving to protect, yet with every pulse in the room, the walls seemed to constrict around me, a painful recognition swelling like a tidal wave. "Grandma?" Lily's voice rang out sweetly, searching for reassurance, and to hear her so innocent amidst the gathering tempest sent a shiver through me. "Who's the man?" "Lily, sweetheart," I tried to formulate words, to shield her from the reality I feared was about to descend, but Grandma's gaze flickered to me. In that moment I saw the decision unfolding within her. She could either swallow the truth again in silence or offer Lily the chance to understand, to embrace the complexity of life's unraveling threads. "Lily, come here," she said softly, steadying her voice, though her eyes held a tempest within them. "This is Eli, my brother." A collective breath escaped us, charged with confusion and heartache, a history deeply entwined in shared blood and buried pain. Just as quickly as it was spoken, an undercurrent of dread wrapped tightly around my heart. What shadows loomed behind the revelation that would change our lives forever? "Brother," Lily chirped, tilting her head in innocent curiosity, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. Before I could grasp the intensity of the moment, before Eli or Grandma could gather their thoughts, another knock reverberated through the house, a fierce reminder that our tumultuous journey was only just beginning. I could hear the weight of impending revelations in the silence that followed, echoing louder than the knocking. Unease slid through me as I turned toward the door, feeling a chilling sense of anticipation wrap around my spine, as if the universe had set the stage for a revelation that would shatter our fragile peace. "Marie," Eli whispered, urgency creeping into his tone, but whatever confession was poised to spill over stayed unbroken, dangling in limbo as we stared down the unknown. What awaited beyond the door was an undeniable shift in our worlds, more than just facing the past. It would take us right to the maelstrom of buried truths, tangled loyalties, and heart-stopping revelations yet to come. We were gathered on the edge of something seismic, and as the next knock sounded, I knew we were all about to experience just how deep the lines of loyalty and love could stretch before they broke. As another knock rattled the door more insistently than before, time seemed to freeze. My heart raced, each beat drumming with the urgency of what was to come, not just for my grandmother, but for all of us. The weight of Eli's revelation hung in the air, a tangible presence that shifted our collective reality. "Stay out of this, Eli," Daniel said sharply, a protective energy radiating from him that pressed against the confusion swirling in the room. He moved slightly forward, a clear barrier between Eli and my family, putting himself in the line of sight like a guardian against shadows that had manifested through time. "Can we not just talk about this?" I said, trying to cut through the tension, desperate to defuse the storm before it escalated. "Let's take a step back." But in that moment, Lily's innocent gaze darted between us, an unknowing spectator caught in a tempest. She was a bubble of joy, unaware that our grown-up conversations were shadows threatening to engulf her light. "Open the door, Marie," Eli said again, his voice softer, pleading. Perhaps he envisioned a reconciliation, a moment to heal old wounds. But the thought of unveiling such layered truths felt like opening Pandora's box, unleashing chaos we could barely comprehend. "Why now, Eli? Why return after all this time?" Grandma finally found her strength, her voice quaking but defiant. "You didn't care back then." Her words created ripples, and I felt the silence that followed deeply heavy, oppressive. It was a silence steeped in years of absence, of grievances unspoken, of love that felt like a ghost haunting our moments. "I had to," he said, his deep voice shaking with the weight of his own regrets. "I thought what? That you could just walk back in like nothing happened?" Grandma shot back, the wrestling anger and disbelief exploding from the depths of her wounded heart. We were now mere characters in a play, at the mercy of history's cruel manipulations. The next knock was sharper, a crescendo of impatience that sent a shiver through me. I glanced at Daniel. He was resolute, his stance unyielding, as if he could shove back the chaos with his sheer will. "Just open it, Marie," Eli insisted, his voice fraying at the edges, desperation evident in his wide eyes. "The truth is waiting. You've been living in shadows for so long. It's time to step into the light." "Light?" Grandma spat the word, bitterness coating it like poison. Where was the light when we needed it? Time had locked her memories in a vault as thick as stone, and with every tick that passed, unprocessed grief reached out for its long overdue recognition. "It's still here, Marie. We can reclaim it," Eli urged, bridging the emotional chasms with words zigzagging through vulnerability and hope. Suddenly, a frantic giggle interrupted the heavy air. Lily had launched herself onto the couch, flopping into a soft heap of blankets, blissfully unaware of the storm raging around her. "I want to hear stories about the brother," she exclaimed, her voice light, piercing through like a sunbeam on a gray day. In that moment, the tension faltered ever so slightly, and I caught Grandma's eye, those deep wells of emotion flickering like fireflies caught in a jar. A fragment of a smile tugged at the corner of her lips, a small glint of warmth, an ember refusing to be extinguished by layers of hurt stories. She murmured softly, almost to herself. I could see her grappling with the prospect of sharing tales woven from heartbreak. But before she could respond, The door crashed open with such force that it careened against the wall, shaking the very foundation of our fragile refuge. Standing there was a silhouette cloaked in darkness, a figure that clung to the edges of familiarity and anxiety, yet masked by uncertainty. The room seemed to shrink, swallowing our breaths and obliterating stolen moments of courage. Marie, the stranger's voice echoed, chilling the air around us. It wasn't Eli who stood there, but a woman weathered but defiant, eyes aflame with a mixture of determination and grief. I felt the blood drain from my face as recognition hit me like a thunderbolt. It was Hera's fleeting shadow from Grandma's long-buried past, a presence that had haunted my childhood dreams as whispers from another time. "You've got to hear this too," the woman said, her gaze locked on Grandma, igniting a torrent of unshed tears in my grandmother's eyes. "Mom?" Grandma's voice faltered, a threadbare whisper consumable only by the darkness of her pain. The air grew heavy again. Shattered pieces of our lives lay scattered at our feet, shimmering fragments of truth now positioned on the brink of revelation. With the doorway wide open and the fabric of our existence tattering at the seams, I sought Daniel's eyes. He mirrored my uncertainty, yet I could feel an unmistakable pulse of hope emerging. Perhaps fragments could be stitched back together. Perhaps darkness could give way to glimmers of light. Yet as my heart surged with the possibility of redemption, an uncertainty gnawed at my insidious, a warning that not all secrets were meant to be unearthed, and not all wounds could heal. "That I in this moment, we stand on the precipice of loss and courage," Eli spoke softly, his voice steady as he took a step closer to Grandma, who remained frozen in shock. "And it will take all of us to face this together." As I attempted to gather my breath, the joy of Lily's innocence melted into the heaviness surrounding us. This was it. This was the moment we'd remember. But as the shadows danced closer, I couldn't escape the chilling sensation that lurking dangers awaited, hidden beneath sacred truths poised to be unveiled. The night felt alive around us, brimming with whispers of fate, pushing us forward just as insidiously as it pulled us back. Our lives hung suspended, strings quivering in the balance, straining for what lay ahead. The wind howled through the open doorway, shadows cascading and intertwining like ghosts, emerging from long-forgotten memories. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us, thick and suffocating. Grandma stood frozen, her eyes reflecting a maelstrom of emotion, shock and recognition dancing with fear and sorrow. The woman, her mother, as unexpected as a thunderstorm on a summer's day, was here, holding the very threads of time woven deep into the fabric of Grandma's life. "Mom," Grandma whispered, as if testing the word, as if it were both balm and blade, healing and hurting all at once. "Why are you here now?" The room fell into an agonizing silence, broken only by the soft breathing of the small child at the couch, blissfully unaware of the tidal wave of unresolved pain lurking just beneath the surface. I glanced at Lily, her innocence standing in stark contrast to the generational wounds that had seeped into our history. "Because it's time," the woman responded, her voice trembling like the fragile flickering flame of a candle. "Time to confront what was left behind, Marie. We can't let the shadows consume us any longer." Eli shifted, positioning himself as an anchor between Grandma and this unexpected figure from her past, intent on shielding the tender connections we had established over the years. But the bridge between our two worlds had already begun to crumble. "What do you want from me?" Grandma's voice cracked, infused with desperation and fury, the remnants of a child longing for answers lost amidst the waves of time. "You left me. You chose to bury the truth. You locked it away and took the key with you." "Marie, I had to do what I thought was right," the woman pleaded, a maelstrom of regret swimming in her gaze. "The world was a different place back then, so many choices led us here suddenly." The sound of a crash shattered the tension, pulling our attention momentarily from the brewing storm. My heart raced, but I realized it was just Lily, having accidentally knocked over a stray stack of books during her search for her lost puppy. As the scattered pages fluttered to the ground, I felt the air shift, a brief respite from the emotions tightening like a vice. "Can we play a game?" she chirped, oblivious to the gravity surrounding us. It was a stark reminder that while we grappled with the complexities of our lives, innocence still thrived, untainted by the roots of despair. Grandma's face softened for a brief moment, caught in the glow of Lily's laughter. But the moment was fleeting, replaced once again by the swirling tempest of the present. "Please, Grandma," I urged gently, taking her hand in mine. This is the opportunity to share everything, to finally put these pieces together. You are not alone. We are here together. The tension in the room was palpable. A rubber band stretched to its breaking point as Grandma closed her eyes, steeling herself for truths unspoken. Together, she echoed hesitantly, her voice imbued with a strength I had seldom heard. Every thread of your history matters, I added softly, my heart racing at the precipice we stood upon. Your story is what will help heal all of us. Whatever shadows loom, we can dispel them together. Marie, her mother said softly, and it felt as if the years evaporated in an instant, the warmth of familial ties resonating through the distance. You have to remember, some truths can shatter, but others can also set you free. A flicker of understanding ignited in Grandma's eyes, and she nodded, though fear still clung to her features. If we're going to do this, we do it as a family, she declared, her voice trembling but firm, like a fragile yet determined flower growing through a crack in concrete. With that resolve, the shadows transformed. They were no longer just specters threatening to suffocate us, but becoming intricate parts of the tapestry we would weave together, stories that would fold in upon themselves, revealing more than simple loss. Eli took a step closer, brandishing those fateful letters he mentioned earlier. Will you read this with me? He asked, his voice steady against the tide of anxiety. It's a bridge back to the truth that may help to heal you. Grandma remained still, shoulders trembling as if weighing the enormity of it all. Finally she took a step forward, courage rising within her. For so long I thought I had buried it deep enough to never face it again. But no more hiding, I affirmed, squeezing her hand anxiously. Together. Let's unravel this now. With resolve, Grandma extended her trembling fingers, trembling as they reached for the letters held in Ellis' grasp. The room was thick with anticipation, as each of us held our breath. She took the letters, her intent echoing across the room like an unspoken promise. As she opened the first, uncertainty rippled in the atmosphere, but the light began to pierce through the darkness. The truth danced on the horizon, and with it came the possibility of Helinga chance to reclaim her actions, her love, and rekindle what had been sacrificed far too long. As the words unveiled themselves in a delicate stream, the memories, both joyous and sorrowful, embarked on a journey through time, binding us together along the way. Each letter erased decades of silence, revealing a truth that would carry us into the light of understanding, a truth that we desperately needed to confront. All the while, I felt a profound connection bloom, cementing my place in this family, stacked high with burdens yet wondrously beautiful. Each word was a stepping stone toward acceptance, a fragile yet unbreakable thread that wove our past with hope for a brighter tomorrow. As the last words spilled into the warm air, I glanced around the room, successively intertwining our glances. Grandma wiped her tear-streaked cheeks, the weight visibly lifted, a promise of peace restored. In that moment, beneath the threshold of what we had faced and yet to come, I found myself feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. How we stood together, bonded, healed, and transformed. And as I looked into her eyes, I finally understood. Maybe home is not just a place, I said, my voice barely a whisper, but strong against the fading shadows. Maybe it's the people we hold dear through every storm. With hearts intertwined, we shattered the remnants of our past and welcomed the dawn of a new narrative, one enriched with love, transcending the very essence of loss, built from the laughter of a child and the strength of a family unified in its most vulnerable moments. And with that, I felt an enveloping peace washing over me, for at the edge of every darkness lies the promise of light. As Grandma shared a smile with me, a smile that told us both we had bravely stepped through the flame, I carried the resonance as a sacred echo. Those words ringing in my mind, in the end, we are stories woven through time and love, guiding one another home.